The Christmas Eve Mystery. There's something about Christmas Eve that makes the world hold its breath. The streets grow quieter, windows glow warmer, and even the most hurried souls seem to slow their pace. In the small village of Winterbourne, nestled in the English countryside, this particular Christmas Eve carries an unusual stillness, the kind that comes before something shifts, before a secret reveals itself in the gentlest possible way. Detective Inspector Sarah Ashford stands at the window of the local bookshop, watching snow fall in lazy spirals past the street lamps. She's not here on official business, not exactly. She's home for the holidays, visiting her Aunt Margaret, who runs this very bookshop, trying to remember what it feels like to be simply Sarah, not Inspector Ashford, not the woman who solves other people's problems while leaving her own carefully unexamined. But old habits are difficult to break. And when her aunt mentioned, almost casually over breakfast, that something peculiar had been happening in the village, small things going missing, strange notes appearing, a sense of unease threading through the Christmas preparations, Sarah's detective instincts had quietly awakened. "It's probably nothing," Margaret had said, arranging books on the holiday display table. "Just the usual village gossip taking on mysterious proportions. You know how people get during the holidays. Everything feels more significant." But Sarah heard something beneath her aunt's casual tone. A question, perhaps. Or an invitation. So now she's here, ostensibly helping with the shop's evening hours, but really watching, noticing, letting her mind do what it does best, finding patterns in apparent chaos, sensing connections others might miss. The bookshop is called Chapter and Verse, and it's exactly the kind of place that exists more in imagination than reality these days. Crowded shelves reaching toward high ceilings, rolling ladders, worn armchairs arranged near a fireplace, the scent of old paper and brewing tea. Margaret has run it for 30 years, and it's become more than a shop. It's a gathering place, a sanctuary, the village's living room. Tonight, despite the late hour and the falling snow, a steady stream of last-minute shoppers drift in and out. Sarah recognizes some faces from her childhood visits. The butcher, the schoolteacher, the woman who runs the tea room on the corner. Others are strangers, or at least people she can't quite place after so many years away. She watches them all with a careful attention that's become second nature. The way someone lingers too long in one section, or glances around before reaching for a particular book, or seems to be looking for something other than literature. These small behaviors mean nothing in isolation. But Sarah has learned that everything means something if you watch long enough. Around 7 o'clock, an elderly man enters. Professor Edmund Hartley, her aunt whispers. Retired history teacher, lives alone in the cottage near the church, comes in every Thursday to browse the history section. Except it's Saturday, and he's not heading toward history. He's moving with purpose toward the mystery novels, pulling out a specific book, checking something tucked inside it, then replacing it with a small shake of his head. Sarah files this away without comment. Just observation. Just noticing. 20 minutes later, a younger woman arrives, early 30s, expensive coat, London accent when she asks Margaret for a recommendation. Her name is Claire Whitmore, Margaret tells Sarah later. Staying at the village inn for the holidays. No one seems to know why. She's been coming into the shop every day, buying nothing, asking vague questions about local history. Again, Sarah simply watches. the woman's hands as she touches book spines. The way her eyes scan not the titles, but the spaces between shelves, as if looking for something hidden. The slight tension in her shoulders that suggests purpose beneath casual curiosity. After the shop closes at 8, Margaret makes tea, and they sit by the fireplace. The village beyond the windows looks like a Christmas card. Snow-covered roofs, lit windows, the church spire visible against the dark sky. "So," Margaret says with a slight smile, "have you solved our little mystery yet?" Sarah laughs softly. "I don't even know what the mystery is. You mentioned things going missing?" "Small things. A pocket watch from the antique shop. An old photograph from the parish hall. Some letters from the Historical Society's archive. Nothing valuable, really. Just odd items to take." "And the notes." Margaret stands, retrieves a small stack of papers from behind the counter. "These have been appearing. Different locations. Different handwriting. Or, at least it seems different. Always the same basic message." Sarah examines them. The first reads, "What was lost will be found." The second, "The past holds answers." The third, "Truth hidden is not truth forgotten." They're written on different papers, one on proper stationery, one on a torn scrap, one on the back of an old receipt. But Sarah's trained eye catches something: the pressure of the pen, the slight hesitation before certain letters. These could be from the same hand, deliberately disguised. "When did these start appearing?" she asks. 2 weeks ago, right after Claire Whitmore arrived in the village." "You think she's connected?" Margaret shrugs. "I think everything's connected if you look closely enough. Isn't that what you always say?" Sarah smiles at her aunt's gentle teasing. It is what she says, or at least what she believes. That mysteries aren't really about chaos or randomness. They're about hidden order waiting to be understood. About stories that make sense once you find the right perspective. "Tell me about Professor Hartley," she says. Margaret settles deeper into her chair. "Edmund? He's lived here 40 years. Taught at the grammar school until he retired. Widower, his wife died maybe 15 years ago. Keeps to himself mostly, but kindly. Always has time to help students with their essays, even now. And he's been acting strangely? Not strangely exactly. Just differently. More distracted. I've caught him several times standing outside the church at odd hours, just staring at it. And he comes into the shop at unusual times, looking for specific books, but never buying them." Sarah thinks about this. About a man in his 70s, clearly searching for something, using the bookshop as some kind of message drop or checking system. About a London woman asking questions about local history. About missing objects that share only their connection to the past. "What happened here 15 years ago?" she asks. "Around the time Hartley's wife died?" Margaret's expression shifts slightly. "There was a scandal, or almost a scandal. The village was going to sell some land to developers. The meadow beyond the church would have meant new houses, more people, money for the parish. But at the last minute, the sale fell through. Someone discovered the land had historical significance. Some kind of medieval settlement or burial ground, I think. The archaeological survey confirmed it, and the development was blocked. Who discovered this historical significance? Edmund Hartley. He'd been researching local history, found old documents in the church archive, made quite a fuss about protecting the land. Some people were grateful. They didn't want the village to change. Others were furious. They'd been counting on the money. And his wife. Margaret pauses. Catherine died shortly after.
Heart attack. Sudden.
Some people unkindly suggested the stress of the controversy contributed. Edmund never spoke about it, just withdrew into himself, into his books and his teaching. Sarah sits with this information, letting it settle. A historical controversy.
A death.
And now, 15 years later, a mystery involving historical objects and cryptic notes about truth and the past. The next morning, Christmas Eve morning, Sarah walks through the village. The snow has stopped, leaving everything pristine and quiet. Church bells ring for early service. Smoke rises from chimneys. Children's voices drift from gardens where they're building snowmen. She finds herself at the church, the medieval building that stood here for 800 years. The graveyard beside it is peaceful, headstones emerging from snow like silent witnesses to centuries of village life. She finds Catherine Hartley's grave easily, a simple stone near the church wall. Beloved wife and truth seeker. 1948 to 2009, an unusual epitaph. Truth seeker. Sarah commits it to memory. She was remarkable, a voice says behind her. Sarah turns to find Professor Hartley, bundled in an old wool coat, his breath misting in the cold air. I'm sorry, Sarah says. I didn't mean to intrude. You're not intruding. You're Margaret's niece, the detective. His eyes are kind but shrewd. She said you might be curious about our little village mystery. Is there a mystery, Professor? He smiles slightly. There's always a mystery, isn't there? The mystery of why people do what they do. Why they hide what they hide. Why they carry secrets for years, thinking they're protecting something, when really they're just protecting themselves. Sarah waits. She's learned that silence is often the best question. Catherine was an archivist. Hartley continues. She worked for the county records office. She had a gift for finding things, for seeing connections in old documents. When she discovered the historical significance of that meadow, she thought she was doing the right thing. Protecting history. Preserving something important. But she found something else too. Something that made her question everything. He pauses, looking at his wife's grave. She died before she could tell me what it was. Or perhaps she chose not to tell me. Perhaps she thought some truths were too complicated, too painful. Sarah feels the pieces beginning to arrange themselves, though she can't yet see the full picture. And now someone else is looking for whatever she found. Someone else knows what she knew, or part of it. Hartley meets Sarah's eyes. I've been trying to find the rest. Catherine left me clues, I think, hidden in the places she knew I'd look. The bookshop, the church archive. But I'm an old man, Inspector. My eyes aren't what they were. My memory falters. I was hoping. Hoping what? That someone would come who could finish what she started. Someone who could see what I'm missing. They go together to the church archive, a small room in the vestry filled with record books, old photographs, parish documents dating back centuries. Hartley shows Sarah what he's found. References to a land survey from 1850, documents about property transfers, letters from various vicars discussing the meadow. Catherine marked these, he explains, pointing to tiny pencil notations in the margins. Her system for flagging things that needed further investigation. But I can't determine what she saw that I'm not seeing. Sarah examines the documents carefully. They seem straightforward, standard historical records about land ownership and parish business. But then she notices something. Several documents reference a family name that keeps appearing. Whitmore. Professor, she says slowly, does the name Whitmore mean anything to you? His expression changes. The Whitmores were one of the old families, prominent in the village for generations. But the line died out, or so everyone thought. The last Whitmore died in the 1970s without heirs. What if there was an heir? What if Catherine discovered that? Hartley stares at her. The meadow. The development. If there was a legitimate heir to the Whitmore estate, they might have rights to that land. Rights that were overlooked or deliberately hidden. They sit in silence, understanding dawning. Not a mystery of theft or deception exactly, but of inheritance and identity. Of history that never quite settled, questions never quite answered. Claire Whitmore, Sarah says. The woman staying at the inn. I think she's been looking for the same things you have. I think she knows or suspects that Catherine found proof of her family connection. And I think the items that have been going missing are the documents that prove it. But why take them? Why the cryptic notes? Sarah considers this. Maybe she's not entirely sure what she's looking for. Or maybe she's testing the village, seeing if anyone will come forward with information. Or maybe, she pauses thinking, maybe she's been afraid to claim what's rightfully hers. Sometimes the truth is frightening, Professor. Especially when claiming it might change everything. They find Claire Whitmore at the inn, sitting in the small parlor with a cup of tea and a leather portfolio. When Sarah and Hartley enter, she looks up with an expression that's equal parts relief and apprehension. I was wondering when someone would figure it out, she says quietly. Sarah sits across from her. You're Catherine Hartley's daughter. It's not a question, but Claire nods anyway. Half-daughter. My mother's name was Elizabeth Whitmore. She and Catherine were sisters, though almost no one knew. They were separated as children when their parents died, adopted by different families. Elizabeth kept the Whitmore name. Catherine became a Hartley through marriage. And she found proof of your heritage, Sarah continues gently. Proof that you're the legitimate heir to the Whitmore estate. She found me, Claire corrects, her voice thick with emotion. 30 years ago, when I was just a child. She'd been researching our family history and discovered she had a sister. She found my mother, and they reconnected. But by then, my mother was dying. Cancer. She made Catherine promise to look after me, to make sure I knew the truth about where I came from. Hartley has gone very still. Catherine never told me. She was going to, Claire says, looking at him with compassion. She wrote me letters. I have them all. She was gathering the documentation, making sure everything was in order. She wanted to present you with a daughter, not just information. But then she died, and I lost my courage. I was only 19, grieving, uncertain. I let it go. Until now, Sarah says. Until now. I'm 45 years old. I have my own daughter, and I realized I didn't want her to grow up not knowing where she came from, who her family was. So I came back. I started looking for the documents Catherine had gathered, the proof of my connection to this place. The missing items, Hartley says softly. I'm sorry. I should have just asked, but I was afraid no one would believe me. afraid I'd be seen as someone trying to claim something that wasn't mine. So I've been collecting evidence, leaving notes, hoping someone who knew Catherine might understand what I was looking for. The three of them sit together as the winter afternoon fades toward evening. Outside, the village is preparing for Christmas Eve services, for family gatherings, for the small rituals that mark this night as different from all others. Sarah watches as Claire carefully opens her portfolio and begins laying out documents, birth certificates, adoption records, letters in Catherine's handwriting. Watches as Hartley examines each one with trembling hands, his eyes filling with tears as he reads his late wife's words about the sister she'd found, the niece she'd promised to protect. "She loved you very much," Hartley says finally, looking at Claire. "I can see that in every line she wrote. She would have been so proud to claim you as family." "And the meadow?" Claire asks hesitantly. "The land?" Hartley waves a hand dismissively. "The land doesn't matter. Not really. What matters is that you're here. That Catherine's final wish to bring you home is being fulfilled, even if it took 15 years longer than it should have." Sarah feels something settle in her chest. This is why she became a detective, she realizes. Not to catch criminals or solve dramatic crimes, but for moments like this, when understanding brings healing, when truth, even complicated truth, creates connection rather than division. "You should stay for Christmas," Hartley says to Claire. "Meet the village properly. Let me tell you about your aunt, about the remarkable woman she was. Let me be the family Catherine wanted you to have." Claire's face transforms with cautious hope. "I'd like that. My daughter arrives tomorrow. I'd like her to meet you too, to know her grandfather." And there it is, Sarah thinks. The mystery solved. Not through dramatic revelation or confrontation, but through gentle persistence, through listening, through the patient work of understanding that people's actions, even mysterious ones, usually stem from love or fear or the complicated territory between them. That evening, Sarah walks with her Aunt Margaret to the Christmas Eve service. The church is lit with candles, filled with villagers singing carols, the air thick with centuries of prayers and hopes and human gathering. She sees Professor Hartley sitting with Claire Whitmore, their heads bent together over a hymnal, and feels satisfied. Tomorrow there will be practical matters to address, legal documents, property rights, the complicated business of inheritance. But tonight, there's simply this: two people finding family in each other, a promise kept even years after death, a secret that turned out to be a gift. "You did well," Margaret whispers. "Catherine would be grateful." Sarah smiles. "I didn't really do anything. Just paid attention." The truth was already there, waiting to be seen. That's what good detectives do, isn't it? See what's already there but hidden? Find the story beneath the mystery. As the service begins, Sarah lets herself settle into the pew, into the music, into the peace of Christmas Eve in a small village where mysteries end not with arrests or revelations, but with reconciliation and welcome. Outside, snow begins to fall again, soft and steady. Inside, candles flicker. Voices rise in song. And somewhere in the space between past and present, a woman who loved history and truth and family rests easy, knowing her final mystery has been solved, her last gift delivered, her promise kept. The deception, if it was ever deception, was only the kind we practice on ourselves, hiding from truth because we fear it will demand too much, cost too much, change too much. But truth, Sarah has learned, isn't the enemy.
Fear is.
And love, patient and persistent, always finds a way through. This Christmas Eve, in Winterbourne Village, love found its way. And that, more than any mystery solved, is the miracle worth celebrating.